Debaters are really good at identifying the problems of different motions, but aren't always as good at thinking of solutions. Even outside of a debate context, people concerned about climate change are in fierce disagreement about how we should be changing our society to protect the environment. In today's video, we're going to discuss two categories of solutions: sustainable energy and agriculture. The way we produce and consume energy is one of the most discussed solutions to climate change. Natural Resources Canada estimates that global transportation, electricity, heating, and oil and gas production are responsible for approximately 78% of man-made greenhouse gases. These gases are the leading cause of changing of global temperatures, which increases natural disasters, droughts, and famines. If our current solutions aren't sustainable, what are the potential solutions commonly talked about in debate? There are many renewable resources that, if used together, could produce almost all of the energy we need. This includes alternatives like solar, hydroelectric, wind, and geothermal energy. Each energy source has its pros and cons. Let's take a look. Solar energy comes from the sun. When a solar panel gets hit by sunlight, it converts the heat energy into storable energy. Solar panels even work when it's not sunny, they just store less energy. That storable energy goes into batteries and generators and can be used for anything from heating water to supplying the power for lights and TVs. Because individual solar panels can be effective for supplying power, it's a convenient energy option for individual households who are wanting to switch to using green energy. Solar power is renewable, meaning it's a resource that won't run out, unlike oil or gas. It's also easy to produce and reduces emissions from dirty energy. However, like any energy source, it's far from perfect. Because solar energy is still relatively uncommon, it's quite expensive to set up and operate. This can be a big barrier to families who want to install panels for their personal use. Also, many climates are rainy or cloudy almost every day, making solar a very inconsistent power source. The panels also take up lots of space, making it hard to produce lots of energy at once. While these downsides aren't always deal breakers, they prevent solar power from being a viable solution on its own. Hydroelectric power is just a fancy word for getting power from moving water. Hydroelectric dams get built to create a high point and a low point for water and to capture the physical energy from the water as it moves quickly from high to low. That physical energy gets stored and is typically used to power cities. Like solar, hydro is a renewable resource. Because the dams themselves build up pressure for the water to move, hydro is incredibly reliable compared to solar or wind power. Hydro also produces significantly more energy per power plant than other green energy sources. In locations with large hydro plants, a massive amount of a city's energy can come from hydro alone. For example, the Grand Coulee Dam in the United States can provide power for up to 2.3 million households per year. Hydroelectricity has several downsides. Because plants are placed in major waterways, it damages the ecosystem around it by disturbing wildlife and flooding large sections of land. Hydropower also requires specific conditions for where plants can be placed. Because it's been proven to be an effective power source, the best locations for hydropower have already been used. Finally, like any complex energy source, hydro is expensive to set up initially, even if it pays off long term. Wind power works similarly to hydroelectric dams. Large turbines are set up and rotate when pushed by wind. The force of the wind moving the turbine generates mechanical energy that can be added to the grid and used. Wind turbines have a few advantages over other technologies we've discussed so far. Like hydro and solar, wind turbines produce a renewable form of energy, but they are more efficient and they take up very little space. They also have the added benefit that individuals can choose to purchase them, unlike a big hydroelectric dam or geothermal plant. Like any renewable energy tech, wind turbines can be difficult for people to switch to because of initial startup costs. In addition, they aren't a viable solution for locations that are shielded from the wind or intermittently windy. Another major challenge is public perception. Wind turbines are unpopular, and many people nearby complain due to visual cluttering of the nearby environment and the potential sound pollution. Geothermal is an option that can be made for individual homes or mass-scale energy collection. Water from underground or from the home gets pumped underground to get heated naturally and then is brought above the surface. From there, the water is turned into steam and used to push a fan, generating energy. The stream gets turned back into cold water and is returned to the start of the cycle. Geothermal energy will then go to a power grid where it's distributed to people's homes. While geothermal isn't always mentioned as frequently, it has major benefits. Like other green options, geothermal is a renewable energy option. It is also very reliable because it is dependent on conditions that fluctuate much less than options like wind or solar. Because it's so reliable, it can produce far more energy than solar or wind. That being said, geothermal has some setbacks. For individuals or cities, geothermal can be expensive to start, but does get cheaper over time. Additionally, there are only so many places that big plants can be placed because they require specific natural occurrences of hot water near the Earth's surface. Lastly, because they require drilling near tectonic plates, geothermal power plants have also been known to cause small earthquakes, both a safety and public perception problem. What are the major takeaways for debate? First, remember that green energy solutions are all different and require ideal conditions which can't be found everywhere. Any renewable energy solution used on its own isn't enough because there will be places where it doesn't function well. Secondly, the common downside amongst all green options is the difficulty to initially transition. Because alternatives like solar power aren't the norm, they can be very expensive for individuals and companies to use. This means you need to think very carefully about how you incentivize the switch to green technology as a major energy source. Too often ignored in debate, but equally complicit in damaging the environment, is the agriculture sector. Agriculture is a complex sector that pollutes throughout the entire production process. Cutting down forests for farmlands, producing food, transporting it across the country, and wasting spoiled or excess food contributes to roughly 24% of global emissions. Let's take a closer look at how all of that happens. Food waste is a global problem, but it's particularly problematic in developed Western nations. Farmers throw out fruits and vegetables that don't meet size or beauty standards, grocery stores throw away excess produce, and households discard leftovers, the long-forgotten rotten vegetables in the back of the fridge. Waste at every point of production means that over 30% of the food we produce is never eaten. In addition to the massive amount of food waste, current food production practices are very damaging to the environment. We're going to talk about 3 of them. Firstly, because agriculture requires massive amounts of land, a lot of deforestation that occurs is due to demand for farmland. Secondly, farmers damage the land and animals there through the use of pesticides, fertilizers, and growing practices that remove the health of the soil. Finally, overconsumption of products from cattle results in mass amounts of methane being pumped into the atmosphere. So not only does farming release a lot of CO2 and methane, it also removes the trees that could help cycle healthy air. Thankfully, there are many solutions out there for consumers and farmers alike. Individuals can make a big impact through 3 choices. Firstly, they can choose to eat less meat. Not only does cattle contribute to the creation of greenhouse gases, the amount of energy, food, and water needed to produce a single steak is significantly more than producing a vegetarian option. North Americans eat more than 6 times the recommended amount of red meat. Reducing that amount could reduce environmental harm and obesity across the continent. Second, consumers need to be more conscious of what they're throwing away or choosing not to buy. That apple at the grocery store or in your fridge that's slightly off color will still taste delicious, but if no one eats it, it's going in the trash. Lastly, eating more locally grown produce can help to cut down on the energy and pollution caused by the need to transport all of our food across vast distances. Farms also have many options for reducing their carbon footprint. When farmers disturb the land by tilling it repeatedly, they not only reduce its nutrients, but they also release all the carbon it was storing into the atmosphere. Farmers can also work to reduce the amount of pesticides and fertilizer used, which harms wildlife and pollutes nearby drainage basins. Lastly, they can work to farm more sustainably by rotating crops. Only farming one product and utilizing the same land over and over strips the land of its nutrients and makes it difficult to use it long term without harsh chemicals. It's important to realize that without sustainable agriculture, we likely won't be able to feed global populations by 2050. The World Resource Institute released a report stating that maintaining current agriculture practices would require the world to cut down most of its remaining forests and would double agricultural emissions. However, by following their 3 key recommendations, reducing food waste and consumption, increasing land efficiency, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, we could feed the projected population of 10 billion on the land that is currently farmed. These changes are significant. They would require training, money, and global initiatives. In a debate context, it's important to consider short-term and long-term impacts, as well as who's the right actor to lead the changes in the agriculture sector. These are just 2 of many more solutions out there that are worth reading about to be as informed as possible. Environment debates are often centered around achieving real change to protect a certain group or the environment as a whole. Knowing what solutions exist is crucial for being able to participate in environment debates.